Like, we basically just gonna be reacting to this video, and I've been seeing a whole bunch of people sending me the video on Twitter, and that's never happened before. I've seen people ask me to report on things, but people haven't really been asking me to react to videos before. So there must be some. This must be a very, I would assume, a good video, especially since people want to hear my perspective on it. So let's take a look.
So a few days ago at time of recording, I did a talk at SUNY Brockport, which is, by the way, where one Professor Sky teaches hip hop and French. It was dope. It was a really good experience. People drove hours to see me, which is like humbling and wild. I'm thankful and appreciative. And it was also just a good time. And it was about hip hop masculinity, a bunch of other stuff. But rambling, one question came up about like thankful and appreciative. And it was also just a good time. And it was about hip hop masculinity.
Kendrick Drake and masculine performance. Interesting.
A bunch of other stuff. But rambling, one question came up about like the true nature of hip hop and who owns it and who is served by hip hop the most. And my answer to that question was basically, sadly, the worst people possible. You might think that the recent resurgence of effort and artistic vision ushered on by people like Kendrick Lamar and Doechii means that hip hop is changing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the total reality of hip hop is really any different than what the medium has been for the last 20, 30 years. It's still very much beholden to corporate interests, and it's very much lost its radical edge that it kind of hasn't had for like 30, 40 years now.
I'm not mad at that at all. I'm not mad at that. I think hip hop today is definitely, I guess it depends on your perspective on what you view as radical, right? I think if we're looking at it from the perspective of, you know, criticizing governments, criticizing war, like things of that nature, yeah, it's definitely not as political as today. I mean, as before. Definitely not. But I also think that it's radical in different ways. I believe what Kendrick Lamar is doing right now is definitely radical in a different way than that way. You know what I'm saying? I think looking to protect the artistic expression of our culture in itself is radical, in my personal opinion. You see what I'm saying? So I agree that it's not as radical as a whole whatsoever. Absolutely not. But when I look at an artist like Kendrick Lamar, I believe that what Kendrick Lamar is doing currently is definitely radical. That's just from a different lens or different perspective. But that's just how I feel. Baby King slowly brings substance to the only. That's true. Sadly, it's not Kendrick. Black Power has been monetized at this point, but that weird rage rap, that's radical. That still scares people, and that's why for Baby King. That's an interesting perspective, but let's get it.
I spoke on this back in one of my old videos where I basically said that once Run DMC signed a deal with Adidas, the game was over and corporatism had won hip hop. But at least early on, there was a lot more room for radically political hip hop music that snuck through the door before the corporations fully understood what was happening. You had people like Public Enemy, Rage Against the Machine, but those are few and far between. And even Public Enemy was low-key an accident. There's always been more underground figures then and now who truly represent radical politics. I'm thinking of Mortal Technique and Brother Ali Black. I'm thinking of Mortal Technique and Brother Ali Black. I'm thinking of Mortal Technique and Brother Ali back in the blog era. That's why that sentence is hard to say, because that was not setting myself up for success. I'm thinking of Mortal Technique and Brother Ali back in the blog era. Today, to a minimal extent, maybe you could say JPEG Mafia if you stretch.
Definitely a Mortal Technique. Definitely a Mortal Technique. I remember listening to him. I remember where I was when I first listened to a Mortal Technique. But yeah, that's my type of music too. That's really what was my initial attraction to Ab-Soul and Kendrick Lamar in the first place. Because with Control System and Section 80, specifically Control System, Ab-Soul was calling out Obama. You see what I'm saying? This is 2012. You feel me? So that's really what attracted me to their music. the first place. Songs like High Power. So that's my type of music too. And I'm a person who believes Tupac was radical. So I didn't see him get a mention in here. So I think it goes to show, like, I think there's different levels to what radical is, in my personal opinion. You feel me? Like, in my personal opinion. Define radical, please. That's a great. In my mind, it's radical is what opposes. It has to be what opposes the status quo, right? If for it to be radical, would have to oppose the status quo at that time. And with that, let's actually look at the actual definition. But that just makes sense to me. All right. Definition of radical. Especially relating to or affecting the fundamental nature of something. Right. Okay. So a person who advocates thorough or complete political or social reform, a member of a political party. Okay, yeah. So I think in general, it's more like economically and socially. Yeah, exactly. Not just regular anti-establishment. And that's where I go to say is, like, I think the perspective on that is very wide, because even just being anti-establishment in the first place is sending people down the rabbit hole, regardless of how you look at it. Like the you know what I'm saying? I just feel like there's levels to it. You feel me? There's levels to it, and I think all the levels are important. You feel me? That's just personally how I feel. And when I look at like you see Akadidi talking ish about you, got a video too. It's whatever, man. I'll probably look into it. Not many artists are like that, to be honest. I wouldn't expect them to be anyway, because they're all rich. Yeah, I mean, my thing is just like, if in my mind, Tupac is very radical. But like I said, he could end up mentioning him in a video, but Tupac has not been mentioned yet. So I think it just goes to show is different perspectives and what we all view as radical. And that confirms that there's levels. You see what I'm saying? Are you considered radical if you don't make any change? I could say all the radical shit I want, but if nothing moves, am I a radical? Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I definitely believe so. I think even if you couldn't spark any change, I think the attempt alone, somebody saw you. You see what I'm saying? Somebody saw you. You feel me? Even if we passing down the message to the next person, and hopefully they do something that people don't take into account. They want to see. It doesn't always have to be a physical change. It could just be the change of people's mentality, considering that's the start of everything. Speak on it, give it a voice. That's all I need. You feel me? I mean, yeah. But sometimes you don't even got to speak on it directly to spark the mind that's listening to it to go end up speaking about it to somebody. You feel me? Absol saying the government, motherfucker system. That didn't tell me that I should have an issue with Obama initially, but that led me down the rabbit hole that taught me why I should have an issue with all political figures, all presidents. I should always have critique for each and every one of them. You see what I'm saying? But I wouldn't. The start is the message, and then the message carries you to the action. You feel me? But let me quit yapping. Let's keep watching.
Stretch a little bit, but I'm more impressed with mostly unknown figures in the current hip hop landscape, like Skip Coon and Infinity Nas. Infinity Nas, in fact, just released their second album. I've talked about them a while back. They're like, basically, what if Death Grips was a bit more accessible, which is good for me, because shout out to Anthony Fantano. I never got into Death Grips. I tried. It wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. I couldn't do it. Infinity Nas, though, fucks with them. And they'd probably be more prominent, they'd probably be a group you know about, if not for the fact that the first track of their new album is a song called Iron Wall, comparing Zionists to Nazis. And by the end of it, they've taken shots at everyone from Barack Obama to Gal Gadot. And that's just the first song. And that's the same type of energy.
Hold on. You just made now I'm finna go check them out. Now I'm about to go check them out. I'm about to go check them out now. That sound fire. Yeah, I'm gonna go check that out. I might go check that out right after this.
That I got from Fiasco 15 years when he got on stage and called out Obama for supporting Israel bombing the Gaza Strip, something that low-key cost him his career. I bring this up because this takes balls. This is a little different, and people are gonna be mad at me. This is a much higher level gambit than Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl performance. This is showing a willingness to sacrifice.
Okay. So this is where, because I have seen these type of arguments on social media. I've seen these type of arguments from people I know personally. That what Kendrick Lamar did, how radical was it? And was it really, if it wasn't super radical, if he didn't go all the way there, then there's like this air of, then what about it? You feel what I'm saying? But I'm like, why do we have to? I think the levels that it took to even do what he did in the first place, he might not have got on there and said, or nothing like that, but he definitely got up there and, you know what I'm saying, put an interesting perspective out there into the minds of many people who otherwise would have not been able to see that perspective. You see what I'm saying? That to me is still radical. It might not be as radical as, you know what I'm saying, calling out the president on the Super Bowl stage or something like that, direct by name or something. Or just talked about the condition. Just we know what we're talking about. But I still think it was radical though, especially for the performance art. For the performance art is where it's most radical, because now we raising the bar. Everything Kendrick's doing right now, he's raising the bar of what it means to be great. You see what I'm saying? Putting in that extra time, putting in that extra work, keeping you exactly. Kendrick open minds. I saw a lot of people researching what he said. And that takes you down the rabbit hole. You feel me? That takes you down the rabbit hole itself. So it's levels to it. You feel me? But yeah, I'm not mad at him saying that what they did is more radical than what Kendrick did. I'm not mad at that at all. But I do believe we got a super chat. Shout out my guy. That's love. Extra joke dealer. Tupac was the last rap leader with real socialist pan-African politics from the Panthers. And that was really radical. He shout out the president of Burkina Faso, most important black man on earth right now. Now, I respect that. I do respect that. And I feel like, especially when I talk about like a Tupac, when I'm like, I'm not hating either. I FOK that. Nah, bro, we all for objective conversation, regardless of how we feel about our favorite artists. From my perspective, when that's one of the things I talk about when I have debates with my homies about like, how do I determine greatness and like who was the GOAT because of these things? You see what I'm saying? And I find myself wanting to say that I will put Kendrick Lamar over Tupac, right? But then just from the mere fact of how radical Tupac actually was with his spotlight is outrageous. You see what I'm saying? Now, obviously, they've actually, the industry put the walls up in the places they needed to in case something like that happened again. So it's a different game people are playing by. And that's why I believe it still should be appreciated what Kendrick Lamar is doing. You see what I'm saying? This is all like the energy of our people is different. Like people don't want to say it, but the energy of our people as a collective is a little different out here. Since not like us. That song is so much bigger than a rap beef. It's a pride anthem. It's a pride anthem. That's the type of shit that makes shit regional. Again, you feel me? You see what I'm saying? It's inducing pride into you to remind you. You feel me? We are our own thing. In my eyes, that's radical as well, because that leads to people getting new perspectives. Those new perspectives leads to new ideas. Those new ideas lead to new action. And then we get new results. And saying he's also a great example of encouraging people to do what it takes to get their ish together. Facts. But X the Joe Diller, I feel you though, because I feel like with Tupac, that's why, like, bro, he had the Don Illuminati on there criticizing the Pope and all types of shit. Tupac criticizing the Pope and pastors and all types of shit on the Don Illuminati at the height of his career. That's different. Talking about war. That's one thing you can't rap about. For real, on a grand scale. They don't want you to rap about that. But that's why I feel where bro coming from also. You see what I'm saying?
Larger appeal, success, possibly even careers for intentional and uncompromised political ideology. It means maybe never getting what your talent could have earned you. The hip hop industry has pretty rigid parameters on just how provocative and counterculture you can get, while also being allowed to take a chunk out of the machine. For the longest, there have been multiple measures put in place to make sure that a group like Infinity Nine stays in a very specific spot. But every once in a while, especially back in the day, like with Public Enemy, someone slips through the cracks. And I want to briefly talk about my favorite group that ever somehow snuck into the mainstream while saying some of the realest, most provocative shit you've heard in hip hop, probably since the early 2000s. Dead Prez and their first album, Let's Get Free, which celebrated its 25-year anniversary. 25 years.
Yeah, I heard of Dead Prez. I heard of Dead Prez when what's it called? I heard of Dead Prez around the time I heard I was listening to Immortal Technique. I was in like middle school. I want to say like 6th grade, maybe 6th grade, maybe. And that shit, that's what I'll be saying, bro. I've been really politicized through the art form since I was a young kid, because my mom was like, you know, and I was listening to Tupac, and then I was watching, like, you feel me? So it was like I was radicalized. I feel like I was radicalized early on, and that's why I would say Tupac is radical. But wait, what the hell was my point? Hold on. Oh yeah, but as far as Dead Prez and Immortal Technique, yeah, I started listening to them right around the same time. I don't understand signifier, because he will come out and say he doesn't want artists to be radical or preachy, but then say he wants more artists to be more political, radical, and preachy. I don't know how true that is, so I'm not even gonna speak on that one. But let's keep going.
25-year anniversary. 25 years. That album came out my senior year in high school, 25 years ago. All right. In the year 2000, Dead Prez came out of nowhere with the classic album Let's Get Free. And I still can't believe that this thing exists, but I got to come back and do a little bit of background. M1 and Stickman actually met at FAMU, where both got deep into leftist politics, particularly the Black Panther Party. And it's hard for me to imagine like how they got into the real politics of the Black Panther Party at the time, with so much of who the Panthers were still being very, very much hidden behind cool aesthetics and aggressive imagery. To this day, the actual leftist politics of the Black Panther Party is pushed to the side. And back then, with movies like Panther or even like Forrest Gump, they were mostly just like this caricature of who they really were. And the politics of what they represented, the leftist, Marxist, Leninist politics that they followed, is mostly left out. But somehow, some way in the mid-90s, when all of this counter...
That's true. That's how it always be, though. They make sure to like with Tupac, they make sure to hide that side of Tupac. The side of Tupac that they push is, you know, all eyes on me, fresh out of jail. That's the Tupac they push. They don't push the Don Illuminati. They don't push Tupacalypse. Tupacalypse, by the way, very radical album. very radical album. Tupacalypse, very radical album. We're actually participating in escape drug. I discovered FD because of the recent rap battle, and now FD is introducing some of us to more radical artists. Oh, that's fire. That's fire. Think FD is criticizing the approach. Some artists are condescending, heavy-handed, and preachy. In the 90s, radicalism was different than now. We had the internet. People could say a lot more. Interesting. That's interesting.
Insurgency would have been at its peak. Dead Prez managed to get a hold of it. And this led them to put this in their music eventually. And they were found in New York by Lord Jamar, of all people, who got them a deal with Loud Records, distributed through Columbia, which basically, I believe, is Sony Records. So as I get into some of the politics of the music, understand that this is all made with the backing of Sony Records. At the time, Loud Records was known for being the home of hardcore gangster rap, especially from New York. We're talking MO.
I didn't know Dead Prez being pushed by Sony Records. That's crazy.
Big Pun, Wu-Tang Clan, Mobb Deep, and even some non-New York artists like 3 6 Mafia and Twista called the label home for a while. And my guess is that Lord Jamar and some other people just low-key snuck them in on that same hardcore hip-hop energy, and people weren't fully paying attention to what they were saying because they had the full backing of the machine for their first classic album. They had articles written about them in a source, all the media exposure you might expect for a buzzworthy new rap duo at this time in hip-hop history. And I think part of this was because their sound was not as New York sounding as other NY rappers at the time, which is a big deal because in the mid-90s to like the early 2000s, the South had something to say. Artists from Atlanta and New Orleans and Memphis had taken the mantle of what commercial hip-hop and street rap sounded like. And at the time, New York rappers were being essentially stubborn about maintaining the New York sound, which was falling out of popularity in hip-hop as a whole. But likely as a byproduct of being at the notorious party school FAMU, M1 and Stickman probably learned to appreciate Southern sounds, and you hear it in their music. The first track, I'm an African, which is one of my all-time favorite songs, sounds closer to something from Master P or Juvenile than Wu-Tang Clan. Their biggest hit, bigger than hip hop, that's like the song. Not, you should know what I'm talking about. This is a bass-heavy, trunk-rattling banger that sounds nothing like what other New Yorkers are doing at the time. But that's the surface-level stuff. Understand that you've heard me use that song, I'm an African, at least twice, both during the Black Panther video and the Hotep video, because it's a song about real Pan-Africanism. I'm not going to do the full analysis of the entire album, and I'm sure that the analysis exists somewhere, but understand that the entire album gets into topics that were taboo even for hip hop. It's a truly revolutionary work. I remember being in high school and this being the first time I had ever heard a Black person use the word socialist and identify as such in a positive manner. I remember going to college in the mornings where I wasn't feeling, being in school. Their song, They Schools, which is an anthem about how schools indoctrinate us, that was on heavy rotation. How this was being heavily promoted in mainstream hip hop media by Loud Records and by proxy Sony. They got the full album rollout treatment, and they were definitely pretty successful, cracking the top 100 hip hop list. The album was critically acclaimed. Dave Chappelle even used their music as the intro for his show for several years, but they also paid the price for slipping through the cracks and being that radical on their records. Loud Records went defunct and they got fully absorbed into Columbia and Sony, and troubles ensued. Their second album was shelved for 2 years, allowing their buzz to fizzle, and eventually it was released with minimal promotion. And in many ways, that was low-key the end of their relevance in the mainstream. They've managed to pop up here and there with other media projects, including a documentary on the Stars Network, but that was it. And this is why a lot of artists and even YouTubers will be very careful in how they engage with radical sentiment in their music and art, and why I will remain critical and even skeptical of some of my favorite rappers when they talk that game, because the reality is to truly talk that game and play it means putting it all on the line, and then crossing that line. It's something I balance.
I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. I think I don't know, bro. I feel like people. I feel like it's level. Like I just think it's levels. I, I just think it's levels. I just think it's levels, bro. I think that like first of all, I don't even think Kendrick Lamar is be ever really saying um like he don't ever really be saying that he's this political artist for real. You see what I'm saying? I don't know where a lot of that energy falls on him, but I just feel like, yeah, it's interesting. You feel me? I think Kendrick Lamar has done an amazing job at heightening the frequency of a generation with his art. You see what I'm saying? The same thing with Ab Soul and TDE in general. I think they played, especially Ab Soul and Kendrick Lamar. I think they played a huge role in in opening the minds, opening the minds of like so many different people in the world. You feel me? Capitalism makes shout out, bro, for the super chat once again, my guy. Thank you. Capitalism makes people choose between money and morals. You just say you can't serve two masters. Our favorite celebs know when not to say for the bread. I mean, I don't know about all that. I personally, I personally, I personally don't know about all that. You see what I'm saying? I don't know about all that because I personally feel like it's the system that you're born into. And while some do radicalize and move and attempt to move away from the idea of capitalism, etc., but I just don't think it's as deep as capitalism being necessarily directly opposed by God of some sort. I don't know if it's that deep. I could be tripping, but I don't I don't know if it's that deep. He said all Pop did was cuss on camera. Nah, bro. Y'all are crazy. That was a crazy comment, bro. I can't even take it serious. Um, it's the Tupac comparison. Um, when I think about the comparison between Kendrick Lamar and Tupac, I think it's more about the compassion in the music and speaking on our reality as well. You feel me? So you're not a true radical unless you sacrifice your career for the cause. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like I understand what he's saying for sure. I definitely understand what he's saying. But are you not radical at all if you don't do something to sacrifice it for the cause? Like, what do we gauge as what's the sacrifice for the cause? Is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I think Kendrick Lamar is a lot more cerebral with his approach. You feel what I'm saying? Messianic? What is that? Is that messianic? What's that word? What's that mean? Yeah, they're giving him that label. Yeah, I don't know. Like, um, I think it's just about their compassion and their ability to relate to the streets the same way they relate to the masses. That's how I feel. Messiah. Oh, radical does not equal right. I agree. I agree. That's a great comment. I agree. I agree. Does everyone know the definition of radical? Extreme, transformative, revolutionary. Yeah, I feel like if you shift in the minds of millions of people, that is radical. If you're opening people's minds, in my eyes, that is radical. If you are opening people's minds, you are radical. This is my perspective. because it starts with people opening their minds to even figure out what's going on. You got to open your mind first. You got to be able to challenge what you've been taught and look at things for what they really are. You see what I'm saying? You do not have to sacrifice anything and you haven't compromised your integrity. Interesting. You do not have to sacrifice anything if you use cap. Wait, hold on. Let me go back to that message. You do not have to sacrifice anything if you haven't compromised your integrity. Why is that message hard? Why is that hard for my brain to register right now? You do not have to sacrifice anything if you haven't I just feel like I'm missing something, but I feel like it makes sense. I feel like what I feel like that makes sense. But I can't. It's not computing for me yet. Until we own our infrastructure, we have to use capitalism to spread the message. I think there's a good point. I mean, and that's the thing. There's never going to be a point where you're going to be able to convince all black people that capitalism is wrong. There's just never going to be a point where you're going to be able to do that. And there's certain things that it's just not possible for all of us to agree on. It's just not possible. So I think it make a lot more sense to allow people to first present the things that people like, things that will open somebody's mind in the first place so they can bring themselves to their own conclusion. You see what I'm saying? Like, Nas was a smart, socially conscious community first time. Yeah, for sure. I also think a lot of the things that Kendrick does is not in public either. But I never seen Kendrick as like a super political artist. Like that's just never I never seen him that way. But I think you know what I'm saying? I think he loved the art form and he looks forward to talking about what he really want to talk about. The entire African continent is uniting behind the socialist leader right now. Shout out Captain Troy. Oh, I know what you're talking about. The entire African continent. Yeah. Kendrick is conscious about the evolving capitalism that is overwhelmingly shrouded as socialism. Radical is an act that requires service. I do believe Dot sacrificed for the production of thought. He could have been maker bankers, but he made conscious rap. That's facts. That's facts. He always valued the message first. And To Pimp a Butterfly, I don't know. To Pimp a Butterfly is radical to me. To Pimp a Butterfly is radical to me. I think the biggest album out right now talking about past life regression, that's radical to me. We opening the minds and giving brand new perspective to shit when we share those messages. And To Pimp a Butterfly is definitely radical. It's not as radical as a Tupacalypse maybe, but it don't have to be. That's my whole thing. I don't feel like I feel like I can tell when somebody is truly radical. And if you understand the times, you kind of understand, like Kendrick not gonna go all the way there. You feel me? I remember a time where I looked at Kendrick Lamar a little sideways for a little bit. When he had that verse about Obama, right? Because if you do your due diligence, you know your knowledge. You feel me? And even Absol talk about it. But so I was looking at Kendrick a little weird for a little bit, but then I realized I'm like I mean, he don't got. I just don't think that if he chooses to shout out Obama on a song, I don't think it necessarily goes against his initial perception. That's just how I personally feel. And I felt so at the time that it could be that is true, But at the same time, I was like, it's not. I don't think it's especially when on the same album he talking about the war in Africa. We Queen Latifah came out. She wore African clothing and rapped about women's rights and abolishing apartheid and back. Then it was considered radical. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Having a discussion about politics and music is not glazing. I feel like people are looking for a flaw in Kendrick. He tells you in the songs. Yeah, I mean, my whole thing is I'm just not looking for every rapper to what's it called? To put they just say the wildest shit. You feel me? And put it like all on the line. You feel me? I'm not expecting every artist to do that. The artists that I enjoy for that, that's who I go listen to. But I think it's so many different levels to what is radical, man. That's how I feel. He stopped trying to change the world a long time ago. I mean, that's why I started to, that's the perspective I was getting from it too. Like it came to a point where he had the idea, like the idea, yes, I had something to add, yay more radical than all of y'all combined. I mean, that's clearly like a rage bait comment. You're not really gonna get what you thought you was gonna get out of that. FD trying to compete with Doc for best activist award. Yo, cut it out. Obama was the first press to. Hey, listen. Hey, we'll take that discussion to a different time. But let me quit yapping.
Myself and why you should be skeptical of me at all times. And that's why I have so much respect for those artists, those rappers, me at all times, and then crossing that line. It's something I balance myself and why you should be skeptical of me at all times. And that's why I have so much respect for those artists, those rappers, and others who did see that line and break right through it, like a Dead Prez or Nina Simone or Infinity Knives. Hip hop is still a genre at the margins of radical thought. It's still capable of being incredibly provocative and challenges the system and the status quo. But we can only maintain that status by remembering the true extent of what truly challenges the system in our art and what that looks like versus art that kind of plays into the same aesthetics, but doesn't quite measure up to what the real radical art is putting on the line. So while I love those artists who do keep the culture and the energy alive, I have to pay my full respects to those who sacrifice their careers to make the real statement. I'm FD Signifier, and this.
Okay. So my thing is this. So this is my thing. Malcolm X wouldn't consider Kendrick as a leader neither at best. I mean, my thing is I don't gotta believe the same shit that Malcolm X believe. If I see Kendrick Lamar as a leader, I don't need Malcolm X to tell me if he a leader or not. I seen how Kendrick music affect people. How Kendrick music has opened people's minds to all types of different perspectives and realities. And that's the first step to anything. It's changing the mindset and changing what you thought and challenging what you thought you knew. And the best way to get that is music. And Kendrick Lamar has done that. We lost independent thought as a society, and he's bringing it back. I think that's happening collectively. On the side that you're on, and the side that you don't like, that you don't rock with on. You feel me? I feel like independent thought just everywhere is becoming more of a thing. But even then, people still. It's always gonna be groupthink. You feel me? That's human nature. You feel me? That's human nature for real. Can Dot open the doors to convo? Yes. Leading, you got to sign yourself up for that. I don't think he did that. It's a lot of things that I heard from Kendrick and Ab-Soul that they didn't need to say directly, that I did my research and then listened to them and connect this shit. You feel me? That's just real. Nothing wrong with being a mixed. You guys join friends. All that devil type Hollywood is real and not sacrifice on a public altar and will become a billionaire. Hey man, I'm all for the great. I'm all for the I'm all for the I'm always for a good conspiracy theory. I'm always good for a good conspiracy theory. Always. We have to stop being lazy and sending our avatars on hero quests. Ooh. Woo, that's tough. He ain't put bread in my community. He putting bread in his own. Hey, somebody gotta block this dude. Hold on. Yeah, he tripping. He tripping. The content community doesn't live with K Dot in his Calabasas mansion. I think the number one thing you could do is inspire people to get it. The biggest rapper in the world doesn't have to be a radical leader. Yeah, bro was doing the super chat, so I'm gonna just keep throwing you up here, bro. The biggest rapper in the world doesn't have to be a radical leader. It would be nice if they were, though. Rap is a global influence. It would, but what does Kendrick Lamar? This is my question. I think. What does Kendrick Lamar have to do to be considered radical for people? I don't think he's as radical as Tupac or nothing like that. But to say he isn't radical, I don't think that's. Let's be realistic here. Dot may mistakenly believe he's doing it for the people, but only he gets the results of his hard work. I disagree. I disagree. Kendrick Lamar reshaping the industry helps every artist who respects the craft and loves the art form. Is giving them more grace in this industry than there ever was. So I guess it depends on what you're looking at it. If y'all want Kendrick Lamar's success to be a financial gain for the black community, then I think you can say that. You know what I mean? But I don't expect Kendrick Lamar to be to create or to do that. Yeah, like it's little shit like that. Where for a long time, all people rapped about for a while was just like all this degeneracy stuff, right? Which is within us. It's within all of us, right? But Kendrick Lamar has been setting great examples for the next generation. You see what I'm saying? Consistently harping on integrity, respect, being humble. The Heart Part 6, talking about friendship and making sure you have heart to heart with your family and your friends. That's not radical. That's what I'm saying. Like, why does it have to be? Why does it have to be, you know what I'm saying, in a way where you feel me? Like, why does he have to outwardly say what's going on in with is wrong word by word? You feel me? Why isn't it radical to make people want to connect with each other again? Like Luther in music videos, like the music video Luther. When all we've been getting is a bunch of music about, you know, degeneracy in relationships, all this different stuff. Kendrick Lamar making people want to connect, and that's not radical. In a time where we are not connected with each other. I don't know, bro. Getting people to listen to longer form songs again with Euphoria. Getting the industry, getting comfortable to artists just dropping whenever they want. Dropping on random days and shit. You know what I'm saying? So that's just my whole thing. Like, I don't know if 6 minutes of bars, just raps. It's not radical because it should be normal. We've been had these lessons, so I get both sides. That's great. That's a great take. That's a great take. Because it should be normal. Right. It should be normal. But the reality is the culture in America is never gonna make it. That's never gonna be normal. With American culture, it's never gonna be normal. You see what I'm saying? But Kendrick is a thinker, not a protester. He doing the radicalism in speeches through his music. He do everything through his music. That's the one thing I know. Like, he do everything through his music. Even people like, come on, you see the unity he's creating. Like, it's a lot of, come on, man. But I think I'm good though. I think I'm gonna get off. Matter of fact, yeah, because my Celtics gonna play. Yeah, I know. I just pissed all y'all off. I'm a Celtics fan. Yes. I'm a Boston Celtics fan. I'm about to watch them play right now. Okay. I wish I could watch it. I wish we could all watch it. But you know what I'm saying? But hey, shout out to Extra Joke. He said boo. Shout out Extra Joke Dealer for the super chats, bro. Appreciate you. He said, all right, man, you lost with July. Hey, but shout out to bro for the super chats. I really appreciate that, man. I'm finna get out of here though. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna drop. I'll be putting my lives. I think I might. I don't think I'm gonna just post this one. But all right, man. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Have a good day.